Hey there, sixth grade. So far in this unit, we've looked at adding fractions, subtracting fractions, and multiplying fractions. And so now in these next few sets of videos, we're going to be going on to dividing fractions. So in this first one, we'll look at dividing fractions by whole numbers. And we're actually going to start by looking at what's called an area model. So an area model is a visual way of seeing what it means to divide a fraction by a whole number. So let's take the example of 3/7 divided by 4. So if I want to visualize this using an area model, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to visualize what does 3/7 mean. Well, I've taken this whole square here and I've now divided it into 7 equal pieces. 3/7 of this square would be 3 of these pieces. So this represents here 3/7 of the square. What I now want to do is, because this is 3/7 divided by 4, take these pieces here, these pieces I've shaded, and divide them into 4 equal parts, okay, or into 4 equal groups. So that would be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and so now what I'm going to look at is what kind of pieces do I have in one of those groups? Well, what I've essentially done is I've taken these 7th pieces and I've split them into 28th pieces. And why is that? Well, if we extended this division here, each piece in this square now represents, instead of 1/7, I've split it up into 28 pieces because this is now a 7 by 4 grid. So these original 3/7 pieces, dividing them into 4s, has now made these 3/28. So the answer to this problem would be 3/28. Okay, let's look at another example. I have 2/5 divided by 3. So the first thing I'm going to do is represent 2/5 using this entire grid. So I'm going to split this grid into 5 equal pieces. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 2/5 would be 2 of those pieces. So there's 1 and there's 2. And now dividing 2/5 into 3 groups, there's 1 group, there's 2 groups, and there's 3 groups. What size of pieces do I have now? Well, now, if I looked at my entire grid, I have a 3 by 5 grid, so these are 15th pieces. So these 2 pieces here represent 2/15 of the whole grid. 2/15. So this is a visual way of seeing what it means to divide a fraction by a whole number. We get a smaller fraction when we do that. Okay, 3/7 becomes smaller pieces. We get 3/28. 2/5 divided by 3, we get smaller pieces, 2/15. So we're going to practice this now in these examples below using these area models. So 5/6 divided by 2. 5/6 divided by 2 means we're going to represent 5/6 first of all using this whole grid here. We're going to divide this grid into 6 equal pieces. And 5/6 would be 5 of those pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If I now want to divide these pieces into groups of 2, that's going to be just right down the middle. Now what size pieces do I have? Well, now I have 12 pieces. Okay, I have 12 total pieces. So 5 of those pieces would represent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 twelfths. So the answer to this problem would be 5 twelfths. 1/2 divided by 6. So half of our grid would be this piece here. And then this piece I'm dividing into 6 pieces. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So what does one piece represent now? It doesn't represent 1/2 of the total grid anymore. It represents 1/12. Okay, so this was a visual representation of dividing fractions. We don't always draw grids and do shadings just because sometimes that can take a lot of time when we're doing really complicated fraction division problems. So we have what's called an algorithm or a rule for dividing fractions. And that rule is to multiply by the reciprocal. And so that's what we're going to be practicing over the next few videos, okay, is how to apply that rule. But it's important to be able to go back and then visualize what it really means to divide a fraction by a whole number. Here below, I want to talk a little bit more about what this word reciprocal means. When you multiply a number by its reciprocal, the product of the number and its reciprocal is 1. Okay, so we're going to practice finding the reciprocals of numbers here in these next few examples. So for number 3, 1/2. To find the reciprocal of 1/2, we need to think what times 1/2 would be equal to 1. Well, the reciprocal of 1/2 would be 2. And the reason is, if we took 1/2 times 2, remember 2 is 2 over 1 really, that would be 1 times 2 over 2 times 1. Well, you could cancel your 2's out, and you would just get 1 times 1 over 1 times 1, which is 1. So the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2. The reciprocal of 1/4 is 10. 1/10 times 10 over 1 will also give you 1, just like 1/2 times 2 over 1 will give you 1. The reciprocal of 4 is 1/4. If we took 1/4 times 4, we would get an answer of 1. The reciprocal of 2/3 is actually 3 over 2. If I took 2/3 times 3 over 2, I would get 2 times 3 over 3 times 2. I could cancel my 2's out and cancel my 3's out, and I would get an answer of 1. So reciprocal is just a fancy way of saying the flipped version of the fraction. It's when the numerator and denominator switch, that's how you get the reciprocal. And again, a number times its reciprocal is always going to be equal to 1. So now we're going to use that fact as we do some fraction division on the back side here. So when we're dividing a fraction by a whole number, we're going to follow these steps. First step is we're going to rewrite the whole number as a fraction, and that means we're going to put it over 1. Then we're going to go down to the next line of our work. We're going to rewrite the first fraction as is, so we're not going to change anything on the first fraction. We're going to change the division symbol to multiplication. And then we're going to change the second fraction to its reciprocal. After we do that, we'll multiply like normal and simplify if needed. Just like multiplication of fractions, when we're dividing fractions, because we're changing our operation to multiplication, we do not need common denominators. Okay, so let's go down to these examples and practice doing this using the algorithm. So for number 7 here, we have 1/4 divided by 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn 3 into a fraction, and for whole numbers, that just means putting them over 1. So this becomes 1/4 divided by 3 over 1. So I'm going to recopy my first fraction, 1/4. And now I'm going to change this division symbol to a multiplication symbol. So this is going to be 1/4 times, and now I'm going to do the reciprocal of 3 over 1, which is 1/3. We have a cute little saying, some math teachers, that says, when dividing by fractions, don't you fret, don't you cry, flip the one you're dividing by. And what that means is you do the reciprocal of your second number, your divisor, which in this case is 3, and that becomes 1/3. So now this is the multiplication problem, 1/4 times 1/3. And so we know how to multiply fractions. We do numerators times numerators over denominators times denominators. So this would become 1/12. Okay, number 8, we have 7/8 divided by 2. So we're going to write 2 as a fraction, 2 over 1. 7/8, we recopy. We change our division symbol to multiplication. And then 2/1, we do the reciprocal of this, and this becomes 1/2. So 7/8 times 1/2. So this is going to be 7 times 1 over 8 times 2. I can't cancel anything here, so this just becomes the fraction 7/16. Okay, number 9, 5/6 divided by 4. So 4 as a fraction is 4/1. We recopy 5/6. We change division to multiplication, and we do the reciprocal of 4, which is 1/4. So this becomes 5 times 1 over 6 times 4. No canceling here. 5 times 1 is 5, and 6 times 4 is 24. So 5/24. Finally, number 10, 7/10 divided by 3. 3 we rewrite as 3/1. This becomes 7/10 times the reciprocal of 3, which is 1/3. So this is 7 times 1 divided by 10 times 3. 7 times 1 is 7. 10 times 3 is 30. We get 7/30. Okay, if you had any questions over this video, make sure you've written those down so you can ask those the next time you're in class. Until then, have a nice day. You're all wonderful people. Take care.